podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Hi, this is Leo Laporte, and this is my Tech Guy podcast. This show originally aired on the Premier Network, several hundred radio stations coast to coast. I lost count, to be honest. On Sunday, August 22nd, 2021, this is episode 1822. Enjoy. The Tech Guy podcast is supported by AT&T Active Armor. We rely so much on our phones these days, and we're always on them. Whether it's live streaming content, catching up with family on weekly video calls, or watching your favorite Tech Guy podcast, there's no room for fraud calls. Thankfully, AT&T makes customer security a priority, helping block those pesky calls. It's not complicated. AT&T Active Armor, 24/7 proactive network security and fraud call blocking to help stop threats at no extra charge. Compatible device and service required. Visit att.com/activearmor for details. Well, hey, how are you today? Leo Laporte here, the Tech Guy. Time to talk computers, the internet, home theater, digital photography, smartphones, smart watches, all that jazz. Time for Team Tech Guy to assemble. 8888 Ask Leo is the phone number. 888-827-5536. That's toll free from anywhere in the U.S. or Canada. If you're outside that area, you can still reach us. All you have to do is use Skype or something like that, and you should be able to get a hold of the Tech Guy Show for no cost, no obligation, no salesman will call. The website, techguylabs.com, that's also free and easy. techguylabs.com. I mentioned that because if you're hearing the show and you say, oh boy, I want to make sure I check out that link or try that, or maybe, Leo, you're wrong, I got a better idea. All of that you can do at the website, techguylabs.com. There's no sign-in, there's no sign-up, there's no fee. This is episode 1822, so you go right to that episode number, and it's divided into hours, 1, 2, and 3, and segments 1, 2, 3, and 4 per hour. Find the part you want, leave your comment, and it'll get it off your chest. You know, no reason to drive around without all of that in your chest. techguylabs.com. Wow, what's Bitcoin at? It's gone back up, isn't it? This crazy thing of Bitcoin. 48,577 United States dollars per coin. That's you know who that's good for? Ransomware guys, because they charge by the Bitcoin. Ransomware really didn't take off until Bitcoin took off. It was around before then. You may remember it in the early days of ransomware. That's where somebody would get something, some malware, some virus on your system that would lock up your system and encrypt all your files, and then they put a little pop-up that says, if you ever want to see your files again, send us, $1,000 in unmarked bills. Usually the way they would do that is they say, go down to 7-Eleven and buy some, they needed an anonymous way to pay, right? Go down to 7-Eleven, buy some, I don't know what they call them, 7-Eleven bucks, and mail them, 10,000 of them to us. That kind of thing. But it was always kind of wanky-janky. It was kind of, they had to explain. So here's the thing. You got to go down and buy these things and then mail them to this post office box. And that was just not a good system. And a little risky for them. But then Bitcoin comes along. And at first, Bitcoin has been around longer than ransomware. But, people, at first, I think the bad guys thought, this is too complicated. We're going to send people to 7-Eleven because this is too complicated. But as time has gone by and Bitcoin has become more, made more money, more valuable, and people become more aware of it, I think they realize, hey, we can do this. And of course, they're no longer going after you and me, the mom and pops. They're really going after the big kahunas, big companies, city governments, things like that. And I think they have the expectation, we'll tell them, send us Bitcoin. We can do that anonymously. So there you have it. Apple has decided to delay the return to the office until at least January. Thanks to COVID, they were hoping to get people back early next month. In fact, some employees were saying, that's too soon, we don't want to come back, and then Delta. And then Apple said, okay, maybe you're right. They're now testing Apple employees twice a week for COVID-19. I guess they don't require vaccines, or maybe they do, and they're still testing. A good thing, too, because they had to close their Charleston, South Carolina Apple store because more than 20 staff members were exposed to COVID-19, so they shut the whole thing down. I don't know how many actually got it, but I think they decided we should err on the side of caution. Lack of workers is also a problem. Have you noticed that? Help wanted signs everywhere. Apple's having the same problem. In fact, they've had to cut back on store hours. That's a big deal for Apple because those stores, do they make money? More valuable per square foot than anything but Tiffany. They make so much money. So not being able to be open full hours, that's expensive. Expensive. The COVID-19 pandemic has been both good and bad for streaming services. You know what it's good for? Disney Plus. It's been quite good for Disney Plus. And they have been releasing, as has been HBO Max and others, they have been releasing their movies online. I don't know. Did you watch Black Widow? Did you see Black Widow? Apparently Disney says $125 million in online revenue from Black Widow. Scarlett Johansson, the star of the movie, not so happy. She said, I had a deal with Disney that they would be showing this movie in the theaters, which they have, but she says, lawyers say, releasing the film online at the same time has really cut into theater revenue. Her compensation relied heavily, apparently, on bonuses from theater ticket sales. Disney said, well, we paid her $20 million. Nice work. Wow. We paid her $20 million for her work in the film. And we have offered to include online revenue in the calculation for her bonus, even though the contract says it doesn't have to be. Johansson's lawyers say, well, Disney is really doing this just to promote Disney Plus. They're going to make money by new subscribers to Disney Plus, which will hang on for a while, and they're not sharing any of that with the star of the movie. Natasha Romanoff, Romanian assassin turned superhero. Actually, it's done well in theaters. 367 million in the theaters worldwide. I didn't do it because it's $30 to rent it, and I thought I'm cheap. I'll wait till it's $6. I'm not gonna 30. I can wait a month or two or three. They do say we've made $125 million in online revenue from Black Widow. So, but the real winner there is Disney and Disney Plus particularly. Disney and Netflix is doing really well. It's a good time to be a streaming. You know who it's a bad time for? Cable companies. In the last quarter, they lost 1 million customers. 1 million customers. And I know a lot of you are doing that. They call them cord cutters, right? They say, I don't want to pay for a cable bill. Why don't I just get internet and I can watch what I want on Disney Plus and Netflix and Amazon Prime and all those streaming services. I don't need cable. Of course, that's why the cable companies have, over the last 5 years, raised cable internet prices dramatically because they know it's coming. And yes, it is. 1 million customers gone just in the last 3 months. Wow. One last story, and then we'll get to the phones. Do you know what a DDoS attack is? We probably heard about this. Distributed denial of service attack. When bad guys, and usually it's done as a kind of a blackmail scheme. They take a site down. They take it offline. Sometimes they do it because they're angry or mad or just for fun, just for the lulls, as they say, the laugh out louds. But a lot of the time they do it for blackmail. On Super Bowl Sunday, for instance, they might go to a gambling site, a bookie site, a Vegas, betting site and say, it would be a shame if you were to be offline on Super Bowl Sunday. Maybe that weekend you would like to take some bets. Well, we could make sure you don't get DDoSed if you give us money. So there was the biggest DDoS ever. They call it a volumetric DDoS. Attackers focus on sending as many junk requests to a victim's server to bog the server down and prevent legitimate users from using the site, such as a bookmaking site on Super Bowl Sunday. The most recent attack, Cloudflare, which mitigates these things, Cloudflare is a company people hire to prevent this, said the attack peaked at 17.2 million requests per second. 3 times larger than any previous attack reported to the public. And how do they do it? They use 20,000 infected devices, maybe even yours, using a modification of a virus that's been around for years called Mirai. Mirai gets on your router. It sits on your router, and then the bad guys get control of it, and they can use it to target a site. So they send commands to your router saying, hit this site, hit this site, hit this site. It's a Mirai botnet on people's routers. It was only, last year or the year before, the FBI said, reboot your router, because we're seeing a lot of people with the Mirai on their router. Rebooting it gets rid of it, but you can get reinfected very easily, apparently. 20,000 infected routers flung HTTP requests at the customer's network in order to crash the server, and it worked for a little while. They say we were able to mitigate it, which means they just put up, I don't know what, they put a bunch of servers up, I guess, and handled it. 17.2 million requests a second. Wow. 8888 Ask Leo, that's the phone number. That's the tech news. Well, there's more, and I'll talk about it throughout the next couple of hours. If you want to talk high tech with me, I'm here for you. Consider me your tech guy. Mr. Telephone Man, Ms. Telephone Woman. Hello, Kim Schaffer.
Yes, I'm having an identity crisis today.
Hey,
Mr. Telephone Man.
Person. Ms. Telephone Person. How about that? How are you?
Good.
Good.
Live music.
Yeah, Billy Idol. It was interesting. The problem with live concerts, I realize there's a lot of people there.
Yeah, I saw a watered-down version of I went to the Novato Art and Wine and saw the Ill Eagles.
Oh, they're good.
Yeah,
I like
they're
the
really
Ill Eagles.
good.
Yeah.
But I looked around and went, wow.
What am I doing here?
This is an experiment.
Yeah.
Let's see how many of us drop like flies.
They probably thought I was nuts. I kept putting my mask on, taking it off, on, off, on, off. I couldn't decide.
Yeah, I had not seen that many people in a year and a half.
It was a little weird.
But it kind of felt normal, and that was warm and fuzzy, I guess.
It was challenging for me. I'll play off the air because I don't want Billy to get mad at me. I'll play off the air. I'll play some
video you took.
Some video.
I saw some
of the Idol.
Somebody I know posted.
He's my age,
wedding.
and he's prancing around on stage without his shirt on.
Oh, look at Sammy Hagar. He's in his mid-70s. Like I don't. The Rolling Stones. I don't know how these.
What happened? What happened?
They sold their soul to the devil, and now they.
Old.
But they somehow they pull it off.
Who should I talk?
Let's go to Jim in La La Land.
La Land. All right.
Line 2.
Thank you, Kim Schaffer. Hello, Jim in La La Land. Leo Laporte, the tech guy.
Hello, Leo.
Hello.
We have time for a very quick earthquake story about your earthquake in '89.
Yeah, we were talking off the air about the Loma Prieta quake. Yeah.
It was on my birthday in '89, and I was in Santa Monica talking to my boss.
You didn't feel it in Santa Monica, did you?
The blinds moved barely. And I said, "What's that?" And he got up and he said, "It's an earthquake. It's a big one, and it's far away."
Far away, so you're okay.
And he was right. Well, we were down in Santa Monica, and he felt it.
People who live in other parts of the country say, earthquake. We got tornadoes, we got hurricanes. But earthquakes are creepy because you don't expect the solid ground to move.
That's right.
It's a little disturbing. So what can I do for you, my friend?
So I'm using Outlook. I get a lot of email, so much that I have an assistant who is trying to monitor it for me.
Oh, isn't that nice? Yeah.
My box is attached to his computer.
Okay.
What he wants to do is take stuff that comes into my email and create tasks on his computer so that he can monitor and make sure I follow up on this and make sure I follow up on that.
Yeah.
And it won't allow him to create he wants to drag the email into a task. Is there some kind of software that would allow that kind of functionality?
Interesting. Because Outlook will do it, but I guess the problem is he's in your account. Is that the reason?
Exactly.
Yeah.
He would have to forward it to his account.
And then he could do
drag it into his task. But there's too many, and that's not unwieldy.
Gosh, that's an interesting question. There must be a solution because, the third part, maybe the answer is not to do it all in Outlook, but to use a third-party solution that works
with two
Outlook.
Of our computer guys. I said, I'll do anything. And they haven't been able to do it. So I said, well, I got to go to the master.
Yeah. Because this has become a pretty popular category because, there's a lot of services that let you determine, have multiple people determine, when would be a good time for everybody to meet, things like that. And I'm wondering if one of them might have the drag and drop feature. He'd have to be signed into your calendar. But does he want to add it to his calendar? Is that the problem?
He wants to create tasks
on his.
So on
his task. Yeah, I think you have to delegate to him rather than maybe if he's logged in as you, he could delegate.
Our people haven't been able to say they can't give him that authority.
I won't give you that authority.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what you really want probably is a third-party task app that he can use that's not tied into the Microsoft account. One I really like, and there are a lot of them, is AnyDo. So this is a very common use, right? I've got an assistant. I want to be able to delegate tasks to him. Microsoft, in fact, has a tasks program themselves. It might be worth looking at. They bought it from the Wunderkind. It was called Wunderlist. They're in Berlin, as you might have guessed. Now it's called Microsoft Tasks. I suspect there's ways to, now, or maybe it's called Microsoft To Do. I think that's what it's called. I would try that. Instead of trying to do it in Outlook, you should be able to create tasks just as easily, still with drag and drop, in a Windows task-based program that's not Outlook. Let me keep researching while we get ready for Sam Abuelsamid, the car guy, coming up. Our show today brought to you by AT&T Active Armor. These days, we live on our smartphones. Isn't that the case? Whether you're watching the latest streamed hot show or catching up with the family on weekly video calls. We do that every Thursday. Or watching your favorite podcast, if you know what I mean. The last thing you want when you're doing that, fraudulent phone calls. What a waste of time. What a waste of energy. Got to the point, at one point, where I just stopped answering the phone. Not anymore, because I have AT&T. Thankfully, AT&T makes customer security a priority, helping block those pesky calls. It's not complicated. AT&T Active Armor. 24/7 proactive network security and fraud call blocking to help stop threats at no extra charge. Compatible device and service required. Visit att.com/active armor for details. We thank AT&T for sponsoring the Tech Guys show. Now, back to the calls. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Time to talk automotive technology with Sam Abuelsamid. He is our car guy, principal researcher at Guidehouse Insights. He's also a car podcaster, Wheel Bearings. His podcast is at wheelbearings.media. Hello, Sam.
Hello, Leo. How are you this week?
Well, we're a little down in the dumps. Turns out our 2019 Chevy Bolt's going to have to go back to the shop. I guess all of them are.
Yeah. So late on Friday afternoon, about 4:30, right after the markets closed on Friday, GM put out a press release, and a few minutes later, I started getting calls from reporters. They previously had done a couple of recalls on the Bolt for an issue with the batteries. There, you may have heard that there's been some Bolts that caught fire. The batteries caught fire. In fact, the actual number of vehicles was a grand total of 7. So, it wasn't a very widespread problem, but it's a serious issue if it does happen. So, this is the first time, in this announcement that GM has actually released some details about what's going on. Not much, but a little bit, and so we can start to talk a little bit about what's happening. And in fact, prior to this announcement on Friday, the recall only covered the 2017 to 2019 model year cars, which had they were the older models that had the original 60 kilowatt hour battery pack. Did not cover the 2020 through 2022 models, which have a slightly larger 65 kilowatt hour pack. The cells and the chemistry were a little bit different in those cars, but the new recall covers those as well. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about what's going on to try and give people a little bit of an understanding of what's happening. So let's start with the basics of these lithium-ion batteries. And actually, what I'm about to say applies really to all batteries. So what the way a battery cell is constructed, there you've got 2 electrodes, an anode and a cathode. The anode's the positive electrode, the cathode's the negative electrode. The cathode. When they manufacture these, they take a large roll of aluminum film for the cathodes and copper film for the anodes. They coat each one of those. They have large coating machines that coat the aluminum film with a mixture of lithium, nickel, manganese, cobalt. Depending on the chemistry, it might be some aluminum in there, various other things. And they roll that out, try and get a nice even coating on there. You dry it, roll it back up again. Same thing with the electrode or the anode. They coat it with graphite. And you put a wet slurry coating on there, dry it out, roll it back up. And then these go into another part of the plant, into a machine that makes a sandwich of the anode, a plastic separator, which is porous, and the cathode, and also sandwiches separators on either side of that. Sandwiches it all together, rolls it out, slices it off, folds those for pouch cells like the ones or prismatic cells like the ones used in the Bolt. In the case of cylindrical cells like used in Teslas, they just roll it back up again into smaller rolls that they call a jelly roll. But for the larger cells used in a lot of other EVs, they fold it back and forth, and so you get a stack of these layers in there. And then they stick it into either an aluminum can for that they use in some vehicles, or into a pouch like they use in the Bolt and a lot of other EVs. When they do that, sometimes, apparently what has been happening with these cells in the Bolt is they're sometimes getting like the edges of the separator actually being folded a little bit. And that's a bad thing, because the separator is designed to keep the anode and the cathode from ever touching each other. When they touch each other, that's when you get into trouble. You get a short circuit, heat builds up, and bad things happen. You get a thermal runaway and a fire. And apparently they've had an issue in the manufacturing process with LG Chem, where some of these separators are getting folded. The anode and cathode touch, or they can sometimes come into contact when the vehicle's charging, because when that happens, those electrodes can expand and contract. And they also had a problem with, in some cases, torn tabs. So the tabs are the terminals that stick out of the pouch that they actually connect all the cells together to make a giant battery pack. When that happens, you get extra resistance, you get short circuits, and bad things happen. So what's happening now is GM and LG Chem are working together to change the manufacturing process for these cells to fix it, to prevent this from happening again. And they're also recalling all, I think it's about 122,000 vehicles that are out in the field. And they're going to be replacing all of the battery modules in there. So if you have a Bolt, they suggest there's some suggested settings so you don't over discharge the battery or overcharge the battery, because that also tends to build up extra heat and increases the risk of a fire. And they suggest people park them outside when they're not charging, just so that if something does happen, it doesn't burn down your house.
Yeah, that's what we park it out in the driveway.
Yeah.
You know, it's a little scary, and I think it's unfortunate because it's going to give people who are not fans of electric vehicles a little ammunition. Like, these things are dangerous, but anything that could store a lot of energy, enough energy to move a multi-ton vehicle down the road at 70 miles an hour, is going to have some risk of, you know, like a gallon of gasoline. Yeah, cars
a lot of energy.
Cars explode sometimes too, and I guess we're kind of used to it. How many Bolt fires have there been?
7 that I'm aware of.
Okay.
So we're not talking a huge number. I mean, we're talking far less than 1%. You know,
it's going to cost
a fraction of 1%.
GM says $1.8 billion to do this recall.
Yeah, and
there goes
LG
the profit
Chem,
right out the window.
Batteries. Yeah, LG Chem. Well, LG Chem is going to be picking up most of the cost.
Oh,
when it's a manufacturing defect like this from a supplier, the supply contracts, basically mean the supplier picks up most of the cost and most of the warranty costs. So I mean, there will be some cost for GM, but it'll mostly be borne by LG.
Wow.
In this case. And the same thing has happened with other battery suppliers. There was an issue last year with Samsung in Europe with BMW and Ford batteries, and I think pretty much every battery supplier's had an issue at some time or another.
We love the Bolt. I'm not. I have to say, we've been very happy with it. It's actually our son's car, his 18th birthday, and he's got his driver's license, and we thought, well, he needs a vehicle. And he likes it. It's small. It's economical. He likes to drive it around. It's easy. It's fun to drive. And I guess at some point we'll get a letter from our dealer saying, okay, bring it in. And we're going to get a brand new battery. So that's not so bad. In fact, if you had an older Bolt, it would be even better news. You'd be kind of almost like getting a new car.
Absolutely, yeah. So any degradation you might have had in energy capacity will probably be addressed by this, because you'll basically have a fresh battery and start from scratch.
Yeah. Okay. So really, it looks like it's only really bad news for LG, the makers of the battery.
Yeah. And the thing to keep in mind is that these kinds of issues are quite rare. Batteries do sometimes catch fire, but like I said, so do gasoline cars and diesel cars and anything else.
Hey, refrigerators.
I don't think we
have a refrigerator. Yeah. We got a letter saying, did you get our letter 2 years ago that the compressor catches on fire? Because we'd like to replace that. And we said, oh. They said, turn it off. Don't use it. And I said, oh. And they did. They, for free, replaced the compressor motor in there. So these things happen, manufacturing defects. Yeah. What's great, and actually I think GM deserves some praise, is that they are biting the bullet and doing the hard thing, which is to replace every single battery and every single Bolt. Wow. Yeah, and actually Hyundai already did this because they were using similar batteries from LG. They did this several months ago with the Kona EV. How many Bolts is it?
I believe it's about 120,000.
Holy cow. Sam Abuelsamid, car guy. Thank you, sir.
My pleasure, Leo.
What do you, if it did catch on fire, the other problem is you can't really put it out, right?
Yeah, that's the bigger challenge. It's just extinguishing battery fires.
Yeah.
Because they do generate oxygen internally as the electrolyte heats up. And so, you can smother it, but it still tends to burn inside, and you basically just have to let it burn itself out.
Which is why you don't want it in your garage.
Exactly. Yeah. It's outside, it'll probably be okay.
Yeah, we parking it in the driveway, kind of far away from the house, and they were very clear that just don't charge it over 90% and don't discharge it fully. and that's going to help. We never did any of that anyway. We always kept it below 90%. Never discharged.
Yeah, because what happens is when you charge it up to, as you get closer and closer to 100%, it starts to build up heat internally.
Right.
You get internal resistance,
Right.
And then the flip side is when you deep discharge it, you can get all of the lithium ions basically getting transmitted back over to the cathode side, and you start to get copper ions separating off of that film, the anode film, the anode collector, and it starts to build dendrites across.
And those can short circuit.
And that's also what gets you short circuits,
Wow.
Because it'll build up basically a little spike of copper across the cell and can pierce the separator and then come in contact with the cathode and give you that short circuit.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you want to stick around and do your thing during the breaks?
I can do that.
It's all yours.
All right. So, Lawn Dog, to your question about do we have a chemical we can put on the burning fires? No. Essentially, no. The fundamental problem with batteries is, typically with any sort of fire, with any combustion, to have a fire, you have to have fuel and oxygen and an ignition source. And generally what we do with fires is we smother the fire. So whatever the fuel was, we smother that. So we starve it of oxygen from the atmosphere, because it's usually getting oxygen from atmosphere. You put foam or water or blanket or whatever on it, and that puts it out because it starves it of oxygen. The problem with batteries is they contain oxygen in the materials. And as it heats up, it releases that oxygen and it feeds the fire from inside even after you smother it. So essentially all you can really do is just keep trying to smother it as much as you can to prevent the spread, and also to reduce the heat that's generated, because it's the heat from the fire that releases the oxygen. So you can do that. You can smother it and then just kind of wait for it to burn itself out. The Boeing problem that they had early on the 787 was, when they also had a manufacturing issue. It was a different supplier, I believe it was Toshiba, that supplied the lithium ion batteries they use in the 787, and they were having some short circuits, some internal short circuits, heated up. And what they ended up doing was redesigning the battery case. So their battery consisted of 4 cells, and they designed a new case that isolated the 4 cells, so that even if one caught fire, it couldn't expand to the other ones. Faux pas? No. Class C fire extinguishers will not extinguish a battery fire because, as I said, it's still getting oxygen internally from the materials of the battery.
Yeah, basically, if it caught fire, we'd be screwed.
Yep.
Hey, stick around to the top.
Yep.
Thank you, sir. Leo Laporte, the tech guy, 8888. Ask Leo the phone number. I think Microsoft To Do, our last caller was asking how his assistant could copy from his email to the assistant's task list on Outlook, and I think Microsoft To Do, which works with Outlook, might solve that problem. He'd have to log into his Microsoft To Do account through his Microsoft account and then drag it over from the email into there. I'm pretty sure that would work. Worth a try anyway. That's, I've often wondered why Microsoft has so many different ways to create task lists. And then I look at Google and I go, oh, maybe that's just the thing. It's an easy thing to do. Dan on the line from Cleveland, Ohio. Hello, Dan. Leo Laporte, the tech guy.
Hi, Leo.
Hey.
So I help out people in my neighborhood with their computer issues. I put a post up on Nextdoor, and I usually get some elderly people who
That's great.
ask about, what they can do as far as like printer issues. I know your favorite.
That's the number one question, though, isn't it? Admit it.
It certainly is.
I don't know why they're so hard, but they are. Yeah.
Yeah. So I have a customer lately who owns a business out of his home. It's travel, and he owns some properties that he manages. He started this business back in the 80s. So he's been using an AOL email address.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
I know. So I'm hoping there is a solution to this. He not only has that, but he also has a Yahoo, a paid Yahoo, and then some other personalized domains. And over time, he's been actually managing this okay in Thunderbird. But he's been having some problems because what he does is when something comes in or he gets a phone call, he sends a quick email to himself.
Smart.
About whatever it is. And sometimes they don't go through like immediately.
Right.
So, and not only that, but he said he kind of wanted to ditch the AOL because it's a little old school.
I have to say, if you're a business at AOL.com, yeah. My reaction, and I would guess anybody under 50's reaction would be, really? AOL? Really?
Yeah. I mean, since 83, he told me he's had it.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. You know. But does he want to get off AOL? What does he want to do?
So one email address in particular, he can't get rid of, or else he'll lose contact with customers. And so I was.
So he's never. He can't get rid of the AOL account,
right? So
what he wants to do, and almost all email providers, Gmail would be a good example. I wouldn't recommend it, but only because here's my soapbox. Email is important, obviously important to him as a business. It's important to all of us. I don't understand why we're so anxious to get free email from our internet service provider or Google or Outlook, because this is an important service. Don't you think it's worth paying a few bucks a month to get a really well-run email service? And so you could easily, for instance, set up a Gmail account, and Gmail it has in the settings the ability to go out, get the or the AOL mail, and drag it over into his Gmail inbox. That's going to add some additional time, obviously. If he's if he's one of the big complaints he has is it takes a while after he sends himself an email to get it. That may not be. Of course, he could then do it to Gmail, and that would be pretty instant. I think Gmail is as quick as can be.
Right, and I think his number one concern is that it's simplistic, and it's there's not a lot of movement that he has to do in order to go from one system to another.
Yeah. Thunderbird would work. Thunderbird would work with any email system. Right. So it's good that you've got him set up with that. By the way, that's a open source. It's gone through some tough times. It's a little bit draggled, but what I like about it is it saves its email in a very standard text-based format, so it's very easy to move to another email program. I think what he should do, and what you could help him with, depending on how ambitious you want to get, is get a custom domain for his business. Right.
Is there a service that would pull the AOL into a custom domain format?
Sure. So it's funny. I've been kind of hammering this idea for a long time, and people are getting it. But now I have to hammer the idea that the company that registers the domain name, whether that's GoDaddy or Google or Hover or whoever, is a domain registrar, not necessarily the same company that does your email. They're not tied together. A lot of companies like GoDaddy and Hover offer email in addition to domain registry, mostly because there's no money to be made in domain registry, so they upsell you on other additional services. So, for instance, if you went to hover.com, you could sign up for a domain. Hover's email is a few bucks a month. It's very cheap. And it would, any email client would go out. In fact, his Thunderbird could continue to go out to AOL and continue to download it. You can have multiple accounts pumping into a Thunderbird inbox.
Right. But my strategy was to try and get the AOL to push to a new address.
Right.
Is that possible?
I don't know if AOL pushes.
It doesn't.
Yeah. You can pull from AOL. That's what any email client would do, and that's what Gmail does if you set it up that way. And I imagine Hover will do that.
I was trying to do the paid Gmail service, but that it will not connect with that AOL. Yeah.
AOL. The problem with AOL is it's Verizon bought it. I don't know what Verizon's going to do with it. It's kind of a mess right now.
Right.
And you're wise to try to get them off of that, I think, for a lot of reasons. Appearances for sure, but also I don't know what the future holds for Verizon. And it's another reason why I kind of don't like using Gmail or Yahoo Mail, because these companies, they're giving you free email, but they put advertising in it. And, it's not a business for them so much. So I like the idea of paying somebody like Hover or I use Fastmail, paying them to do your email. It's funny. I don't. AOL Mail may have some oddball. It does not have an IMAP or POP server.
It does. It has all the instructions in there.
And why can't Google pull from it, I wonder?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
I've tried it several different ways with all the different port numbers and addresses, but it just will not work.
Huh.
It always throws an error.
Huh. Yeah, it sounds familiar to me. I feel like somebody's complained about that on the show before, and I don't remember what the fix is. imap.aol.com. Port is incoming port is 993. Outbound port is 465. You won't want to use the outbound port. You'll want to start using Gmail, whoever you use as outbound mail.
Yeah.
I feel like you can do it. So I feel like you can do it, but I'm not sure why and why you're having trouble with it. Maybe somebody listening can help us with that. I also feel like I've heard this before. We've got some links the chat room is providing. How to forward, here's one from alphr.com. How to forward AOL to Gmail. Yeah, log into Gmail, select the cog. That's the settings icon. I think it's the stuff you've already done.
And it seems like it. And like I said, I've tried it a number of times, and it just will not work for me.
Yeah. It may be something Verizon has done since they acquired AOL. Although this article is from this year, so I don't know why it's not working. But if you set up, for instance, if you went to hover.com, you got this guy to buy for $10 a month a .com address. That's his business. Then once he's got that, he can have that email go anywhere he wants, Gmail, or you can use Hover's service, and without changing his address ever again, he can. I think if he's in real estate, if he's any business, so much better to do it that way, because then you own the domain and you don't ever have to worry about this forwarding thing again. It's time for Sam Abuelsamid's Extra Innings. Look at that doggy. Is he surfing? Right. What is he doing?
That is Daisy riding on my paddleboard yesterday. We went to the lake, and she likes to ride on the paddleboard.
So she doesn't throw your balance off?
No, she's got that low center of gravity because she's a corgi. So, even if she walks back and forth, she'll walk back, between my legs, go back from one end of the board to the other.
For you. If you can do that, I'm impressed.
Yeah.
I don't think I could balance myself, let alone myself plus a dog. Nice.
Yeah. No, she enjoys it. Anyway, I wanted to continue with the topic of vehicle fires and provide a little context. And I was just looking up some statistics. According to the National Fire Protection Association, there were about 181,000 highway vehicle fires in 2018. That's recent stats. Wow. So, the number of, obviously the number of EVs that are out there is still tiny compared to, there's about 290 million registered vehicles in the United States, and EVs are about 1 million of those right now. And, I said, 7 Bolt fires. So the numbers are small, but right now, the number of EV battery fires is not necessarily any worse than it is for gasoline, and is probably less likely than it is for gasoline vehicles. And this all obviously includes all kinds of fires. not all of these are necessarily gasoline fires. It can be other things caused by a crash, but fires do happen, and that's something that's not likely to change as we make the transition away from fossil fuels or liquid fuels over to electric vehicles. But somebody in the chat had asked about using dry ice. And I guess where dry ice would potentially help is just in terms of reducing the heat generated by the fire, which might help to mitigate the spread, because the problem you have with a battery fire is you get one cell that goes up, it generates a lot of heat that expands to surrounding cells and then causes those to go up. So if you can mitigate the heat transfer, dry ice might be able to help a little bit with that, but again, it's not very practical. Most fire departments aren't carrying around trucks full of dry ice, and so it's it's not likely it's something that's going to have a big impact. Let's see who's CompTR was asking about whether fires like the ones in the Bolt cause insurance rates to go up on EVs. Again, for insurance rates, are based, in part on risk factor. What the frequency of an issue happening is. If the frequency of fires in EVs is no worse than for gasoline vehicles, or in fact less, then no, it shouldn't have an impact on the insurance rates. I mean, obviously, it could if the number of fires, if we start seeing a higher frequency of fires with EVs than with gasoline vehicles, then yeah, it would cause insurance rates to go up. But so far, that hasn't been the case. We haven't seen any necessarily increased risk. It's just that when it does happen, they are more difficult to extinguish. So it shouldn't have a major impact. Let's see. Well, fires like liquid nitro, again, how often do you see a fire truck that's carrying liquid nitrogen? It certainly would help if you had something like liquid nitrogen or dry ice that could dissipate some of the heat, draw some of the heat away from the fire. That could help slow it down and help prevent the spread through the rest of the battery pack. And that's really what they try to do now, just with water. When there is a battery fire trucks will come and they'll just dump tens of thousands of gallons of water on it just to try to draw the heat, take the heat away from it and prevent and limit the spread to the other cells and the other modules. Faux pas is saying, just read the first responders guide from Tesla said 3,000 to 8,000 gallons of water is needed if poured directly onto the battery. That's probably, I would say that's probably at a minimum. There was a crash earlier this year in Texas, in a suburb of Houston, I think, where there was also some speculation that the driver might have actually climbed out of the driver's seat and had the car on autopilot. The NTSB is still investigating that, but the car, when it crashed, it did catch fire, and the firefighters apparently had to put about 30,000 gallons of water on the vehicle to get the fire extinguished, and it took several hours of just continuously dumping water on this thing to try to get the fire under control. And that's the bigger risk, is not so much that there's a higher risk of fire, but rather that it's much more difficult to extinguish the fire. So if it's for example, if you have a multi-vehicle accident, you might have or a vehicle that crashes into a building, you might have a higher risk of what's the word I'm looking for? Adjacent things catching fire. Either other vehicles. So ideally, you want to drag it away from anything else if at all possible. If you are in an EV and you start smelling some smoke, pull over immediately, get out of the car. But that also applies to gasoline vehicles. Get out of the vehicle as quickly as you can. Don't stay in there, and call 911. RF guy says if your Tesla catches fire, just launch it into space. That would certainly help. But as I said, because it's generating its own oxygen, it will actually continue to burn in a vacuum, at least for a while. Halon gets weaponized once heated. I'm not familiar with what happens to halon when it heats up, but I'll take your word for it for now. Will I make it to the Michigan Firekeepers Casino 400 NASCAR race today? No, I will not. I'm not much of a NASCAR fan. I actually spent most of the last 24 hours listening to the 24 Hours Le Mans, which ended earlier this morning. Toyota came in first and second in that race. First race at Le Mans for the new hypercar class, and the two cars from Glickenhaus, Jim Glickenhaus's team. He's based in Connecticut, an American team. They actually finished 4th and 5th overall at Le Mans, and finished. It's their first time at Le Mans. Both cars finished and did surprisingly well, better than a lot of people expected. So, and I will give it back to Leo.
Oh, you got a minute.
Oh, okay.
I mean, you can. I don't want to force you or anything.
See, did I get to check out the Ford F-150 recent fire victims? The aluminum melts away. I'm not familiar with that particular instance, but yeah, I mean that is something with aluminum. It has a lower melting point than steel, and in fact, it will burn if the fire. It can catch fire.
Yeah.
Wow. If you remember back, if you're old enough to remember the Falklands War, there was a British destroyer that was constructed out of aluminum, and the Argentinians fired one missile at it. The whole thing burned right to the ocean.
Sam, have a great week. Thank you for doing this. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure, Leo.
All right.
Have a great week.
Talk to you all next week. All right. Have fun up here.
Bye.
Well, hey. How are you today? Leo Laporte here, the tech guy. Time to talk computers and the internet, all that technical stuff. 8888 Ask Leo. IoT devices like your smart, talking voice assistant and your microwave oven, and we can talk about electric vehicles, all that stuff. 8888 Ask Leo is the phone number if you've got a question, a comment, a suggestion. 1-888-827-5536. Love to hear from you. Love your calls. They make it so I don't have to talk for 3 hours, which is a good thing for both of us, I think. Ann is on the line from Studio City.
Hi, Leo.
Hi, Ann.
Yes, I have a question about my Chromebook end of life automatic update expiration.
Yeah.
Okay, so the first question is, how secure is it? Can I use it for anything?
You can keep using it.
Even for online banking?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I wouldn't worry about it. First of all, it's a very secure device anyway. All it means is you're not going to get updates. Eventually, you're going to want Chrome OS. It doesn't matter so much, but you're going to want your browser to get updated. And so that's going to be really the more big issue is, Chrome, you're not going to have the latest version of Chrome. And after a while, a few months, Chrome is so secure, I wouldn't even really worry about that particularly. But it might be time to look at a new Chromebook. The good news is newer Chromebooks have much longer life.
Right. I do have a second one that's 2025. But the question is, on my first Chromebook, I've been trying to power wash it, and there used to be in the advanced setting both reset and power wash, and now it only has reset to default factory. Is that the same as power wash?
Yeah, it's the same as power wash. I don't know why it doesn't say power wash anymore. But it's the same thing.
Okay, so once it's power wash, there's nothing personal on it. I can turn
That's right. You can give it to somebody. Absolutely. You can do anything you want with it.
Oh, okay. That's good to know.
And all your stuff is gone. Yeah. So this AUE, this auto update expiration. Google has a website where you can look and see for every Chromebook by manufacturer what the expiration date is. Newer Chromebooks have longer life, which is a good thing. There's really no reason they shouldn't.
I forgot what you look under. I think it's about.
Yeah, it'll tell you if it's out of date. Yeah, but before you buy, you can also look.
Bought it yet? Then you don't know.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I think I wouldn't worry too much about the security of it, but it's probably time to look at a new Chromebook. And yeah, do a factory reset. Maybe they've gotten rid of the name. I still see the name PowerWash. In fact, I just power washed a Pixelbook, one of the Google's original Chromebooks, and it said power wash. But maybe they're getting rid of it because Android doesn't say power wash; it says factory reset. That's what phones say. Maybe they figure, well, people know what that means. Power wash doesn't. What does that mean to anybody?
Exactly.
So, yeah, I guess that's it. But yeah, so keep using it. It's fine. Your bank, remember, the security that your bank provides is still good and up to date. At some point, that browser will be, sites will start saying, well, you need a newer version of Chrome to use it. And at that point, you really probably should.
Right. I do notice a difference between my first Chromebook and the second one I bought like 3 years later.
Oh, yeah. They're much faster now.
Using it on Zoom, there's differences.
Yeah, because the processors get better. The newer Chromebooks, Acer makes some great Chromebooks. I'm expecting Google to, we've been waiting for a while to announce a new Chromebook made by Google. Their Pixelbook Go is the last one they announced a couple of years ago. Samsung makes some excellent Chromebooks. The quality's really gone up. I think these are great choices for everybody.
Oh, it's so practical, especially if you don't use it for office work or anything like that.
Yeah, but depending on the office work, if you have to have Microsoft Office, yeah. But I mean, Google's Office suite is pretty compatible and very capable. I think for most people, it's all you need. Sometimes people overbuy. They think, well, everybody has Windows, and I guess I should have Windows. And I think a Chromebook's not a bad thing at all.
Right. One other thing, I've been listening to your talk on EVs, and as an EV hesitant person, I'd like to mention that if you're living in an apartment,
that's a problem.
It's going to be really hard to recharge, and then during the power outages, you're not supposed to recharge it.
I agree.
And then if you have to evacuate, it kind of dies, and then it blocks gridlock. It's a problem. And then the batteries are toxic to the environment. So
not as toxic as burning gas is, but yes, they're not 100% clean. Gas is really not clean. But I agree. If you don't have as a homeowner, it's easy because I charge it every night whenever I need to. The thing that I think one of the things you realize after you get an electric vehicle is they go farther than you think. Now, if your commute is 200 miles a day, maybe that's not an ideal solution. But for the kind of driving I do, I go a week between charges. Just like I went a week or two between going to the gas station. And so it's not quite the issue. I think some people think maybe it's more of an issue. But certainly, it's not, if it's not for you, it's not for you. And I understand that. I love my electric vehicles. I think they're fun to drive. And for me and my usage, and remember, I'm in California, if you live in wintry country, maybe there's not as good a solution either. But if you live nearest a charging station, maybe that's enough. I think I'd like to see more and more apartment buildings put in chargers. I think they are. So we're going to be going that way one way or the other. So it'd probably be good to try to figure it all out. Ann, thank you. I appreciate the call. We got another Ann on the line. Look at that, from Orange County. Hi, Ann. Leo Laporte, the tech guy.
Well, hi, Leo. I'm so glad to speak with you. You've helped me a lot in the past. And this is somewhat of a low-tech question, but maybe you can help me. I have an HP OfficeJet Pro 8028, and it's hooked up to my landline. I've used it successfully to fax things, all year long. But recently, this week, I went to fax to Tennessee number 615. And for some reason, it would not go through, and I kept hearing a voicemail that said, something about an access code that it wanted. So I don't know what I'm doing wrong.
You're not doing anything wrong. You're doing fine. But that number isn't set up to do faxing in the way that machine expects, or a fax machine would expect. It's expecting you. What's happening is the owner of that number is sharing the number between a voice line and a fax line.
Oh.
So when you call, It says, if you're sending a fax, press 3. Well, that's fine if you're on a phone. You know, the old fax machines, I don't know if you remember this, you'd call on a regular phone on the fax machine. It had a phone built in, and as soon as you heard the beep, beep, you'd put the phone down and press the send button. And so this is kind of a hangover from that era.
Okay, this is Merrill Lynch. And
yeah, tell Merrill Lynch get a real fax number. So how would you do that? Let's see. You would need to, and if you look on the back of your HP, it may have another jack for the phone, so that you could attach a phone to it, and then you could dial the number. Be listening on the line, press the number when it says press 3 to send a fax, then hang up, and the machine will continue as normal. But the way most fax machines work these days, they expect to hear those fax tones on the other end immediately. And if they get a voice like that, they don't know what to do. Mm-hmm. So Merrill Lynch, as the chat room is saying, the 21st century is calling. Yes. Could you get a... Actually, it isn't really the 21st century. 1995 is calling, and they want to send you a fax. Yeah, I mean that's somebody trying to share a fax line with a voice line. Partly, it's probably because so few people do faxes. But if it's Merrill Lynch and many banks, they still require faxes, right? That they've
that's the bottom line. So what I've done, what I have been faxing is all I do is disconnect or turn my voicemail machine off of the phone, and then the fax. Then I go upstairs and fax something, and everything goes through.
Yeah, it's just like a regular. Excuse me. It's like a regular fax line. Mm-hmm. Merrill Lynch wants to apparently be able to take voice messages or even answer calls on the same line as they're accepting faxes. Probably a measure of how few faxes they get. I don't know. Yeah. Maybe they're just cheap. I wonder how eFax and the other online fax services handle that. They must have a way of handling it. So I would check out efax.com. It's very similar. You'll upload a PDF to them and they'll fax it, and they must have a way of handling these kinds of lines. I remember these were very common. Yes. So there must be a way to handle that, but I don't know how to do it with your HP. That's probably.
And then I have another girl problem. Maybe you could. What's the difference between printing and scanning on this machine? In the past, I just put a paper in and hit print, and it makes a copy for me.
Oh, that's nice.
So what's the difference? What is scanning for?
So scanning is essentially when you press that print button, you told it scan and print. So, when you open the lid on that HP, there's a glass panel there, and you could put a document on it, right? That's the scanner. And you could press the scan button or use the software on your computer and say scan, and it would save it as a digital file, a PDF or a TIFF. But it's as a convenience, it also has a copy button, which is smart enough to know, you're going to, just like a copier, you're going to put a piece of paper on there, I'll scan it, and then print the output without saving the intermediate digital file. That's all. It's actually being smart. Scanning is just getting the data into bits so that it can either save them or print them or do something else.
But if I don't need, I could just keep printing away.
Yeah, if it's working for you, keep doing it. And unless you want the digital file. At some point you may say, in fact, I do this. You may say, I don't want to keep all these paper receipts and documents and stuff. I'm just going to scan them. That's when you'll use the scanner as a scanner only.
Okay.
Yeah. Get rid of the paper.
So if I did do always on print, when I wanted a copy, like on one page of what I've sent, then I'd do a scan?
No, it is doing a scanning. Anytime it's taking a physical piece of paper and doing anything with it, it's scanning.
I see. Okay.
That's that glass pane there, and there's a camera in there, believe it or not, and a light, and that you maybe even have seen it go across the page. Mm-hmm. It's basically taking a picture of it. It's what it does with it afterwards that determines whether you're printing or just scanning. Just scanning would save it as a file.
Got it. As always, Leo, so much appreciate how much you help us.
I love this stuff, so I'm glad you called. Thank you, Ann.
Thank you.
Have a great day. 8888 Ask Leo. That's the phone number. If you I'll talk about anything, even printing, despite appearances. Chris Marquardt, our photo guy, coming up just around the corner, so stay right here. feel like I'm at a concert again. Leo Laporte, the tech guy, 8888. Ask Leo, the phone number. Joey on the line from Knoxville, Tennessee. Hello, Joey.
Hello. How are you doing today?
I am doing very well. How are you, sir?
Pretty good. Got a question. I've heard you mention OpenNAS or FreeNAS before. By setting up a home storage system.
Yep.
I got a hold of a server that has SATA ports for 13 drives.
Oh, wow.
For the operating system.
Holy cow.
12 for drive.
Storage, yeah. Wow.
And it only takes up one rack unit of space.
How nice.
But it's about 2 rack units deep from front to back. It's a huge thing. But anyway, I've seen information and had looked at some of it. What have you ever used the system before? The OpenNAS or FreeNAS?
FreeNAS. I have not used it. They've kind of named it TrueNAS. Apparently, they've changed.
I know something.
They changed the name. It's TrueNAS, but it's the same idea. It's NAS stands for Network Attached Storage. It's still a computer. In fact, these NAS operating systems are almost always Linux operating systems. It's a computer, though, that we call a headless computer. It doesn't have keyboard, mouse, and monitor. It's attached to your network, and you access it via a browser on another computer on the same network. Yeah. And what most people use these for, it's a massive amount of storage. You obviously, how many drives you said?
I have 6 3-terabyte drives.
Yeah,
right,
so there you go. That's 18 terabytes.
For 6 more drives.
Yeah, that's incredible. You could have 36. Yeah. Remember, though, depending on how the NAS is set up, some of those drives will be there for redundancy in case of failure. You usually get about 2/3 of the total capacity available to you. So that's still plenty of storage for almost anybody. People use it for backups. That's the most obvious reason. But you could also use it to be your own cloud, for instance. And FreeNAS will let you do that. TrueNAS. It's still at freenas.org. So I guess they haven't changed everything. But it's completely open source, completely free. It's Linux-based. One of the things I like about it is it uses the new, or maybe not so new, but very powerful file system, ZFS, which is really great for things like snapshots and so forth. So it's a very good choice. But there are many choices to run on your NAS, and that's just the one I'm most familiar with. I think it's certainly worth a try. You've got the hardware. You don't need to go out and buy NAS hardware, which is mostly what people like me do. We buy a server that is basically a bunch of hard drives. You got all that, which is great.
Yeah, I put in a solid-state drive for the operating system to go on. And then the other drives are spin drives.
You don't, be honest, most of the time NASs are not performance-driven. You're not going to be running software directly on it. You're not
pulling from them all the time.
So you already probably have more horsepower and more speed than a traditional, NAS device that you might buy in the store, so a Synology or a QNAP or something like that. You're doing pretty well. There are other companies that make open source NASs, but I think FreeNAS is the open source NAS of choice. It's the one I would almost certainly recommend. As I said, I use Synology. I spent a lot of money, but you got the hardware. Go for it. All right, Christopher, I got your email right here.
Wonderful.
A lot of tidy pictures.
Very tidy. Yeah, it's interesting. It's mostly pictures of something that is tidy as opposed to like pictures that are tidy from a composition point of view.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a tide, by the way, that's a tide pool. Get it? Okay. Yeah, you were wondering probably why that was considered tidy. That's a very,
I even know the term, but I didn't make the connection at all.
This looks like an infrared picture.
That is infrared photography. Yeah. It's called I think it's called the wood effect.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Use
because green
infrared light and all the
white.
green.
Yeah.
Right.
What's funny is this guy's local. It's just down the road. He has a Sony.
Oh, there you go.
I wonder if this Sony is actually doing infrared or if it's simulating it.
I'm pretty sure he modded. He had it modded, which is where you take the infrared filter. You have someone take the infrared filter out and the one straight directly in front of the sensor, and have that replaced by just a pane of glass.
Yeah.
So
the D70. I was going to have my Nikon D70 had that done to it, but I didn't think I had to get it.
Yeah,
enough use out of it.
Most digital cameras, you cannot really do real infrared photography because they have an infrared shield.
Is that the bear filter or is that something else? This Tide. It's tidy.
That is very tidy.
Tidy little bee. Tidying up the vessel. Tidying up the ropes. That's one of the ones Chris picked, I believe. Tidy daffodils. I don't know. I gotta look at the title to find out.
I'm not sure. I didn't read the comments on that one.
TG Tidy. It's all it says. Yeah, it's
doesn't say.
Greetor. Yeah, this is the big election coming up in a couple of weeks in California.
That's definitely going to be a very tidy election, right?
It's going to be untidy. Quite the opposite. Just like this guy. Just like this guy. Kind of untidy. Oh, tidy.
We have an election coming up in September here.
Do you? Yeah. Angela is leaving office,
yes.
Isn't she?
Yes, her replacement.
Is her party going to win, you think, or?
It's likely, but it's getting less likely by the day.
So you have the same problems going on in Germany that we have here. Oh, I like that.
Sort of, yes.
Yeah. This is another one of the ones you'll be talking about. Very tidy.
What are the Arnody Scotch? I don't know these biscuits per se. That's an American thing, or is that a very local thing in the States?
I'm guessing it's
I've never seen them.
Scottish thing. I haven't either, but it looks familiar. Let me look the Arnody biscuits up. Arnott's gluten-free biscuits. It's Australian. Yes, in fact,
that's why I haven't.
They're from Tim Tams. The company that does Tim Tams does Arnott's.
Oh yeah, I know Tim Tams.
Yeah. This is the same company. So
the original Scotch finger.
Yeah. KK&R owns them. Bought them from Campbell's Soup Company. So
interesting. all these food conglomerates.
It's amazing, isn't it? But I knew the name Arnott's, and that's from the Tim Tams. Every time we have visitors from down under, they bring me Tim Tams. They know. Very tidy comic book collection. I like that. Tidy turn. I don't know. Tidy shop.
The only more tidy way to organize books is by turning them around. I've seen Instagrammers that turn them around with the back, which is completely weird.
In the Halston miniseries that HBO did, Halston, the designers, Long Island home, all the books were turned spine in. And I noticed that. I thought it's very designery, I guess. It's neutral, right? It's not, there's no colors. I don't know. Here we go. Mama, don't let your babies grow up to be photographers. Chris Marquardt. Actually, that's not true. I love photography. Chris Marquardt is our favorite photo guy. He is a digital photographer himself. Hosts probably the #1 photography podcast, certainly #1 in my heart. Tips from the Top Floor, tftf.com. Does photo workshops at sensei.photo, SENSEI.photo, and joins us every week to talk about getting better pictures, not necessarily with a fancy camera. I was at a rock concert last night, first one in 2 years. And I forgot to bring a good camera. A lot of times at rock concerts, Chris, these days, they don't let you bring detachable lens cameras because they want they want to own the photos. But I took some pretty good, I was very happy with the pictures I took with my iPhone.
Yesterday I did a thing that I do about once a year. A friend of mine has a pilot's license, and we took a spin in a plane, and that's typically the situation where I would bring a big special camera with a big lens and everything. And I didn't. I brought the iPhone and set it to black and white, and it was the best thing ever. It was so convenient, and the pictures that come out are very good.
It's kind of amazing. Here's a picture of Billy Idol.
It isn't.
On stage with an iPhone of all things. Kind of remarkable. Anyway, we're not here to talk about rock and roll. We're here to talk about our assignment, which was tidy.
Yes, we are. Tidy was the assignment, and of course, we have had some this was a difficult one. Amazing submissions, and I have made the choice. And I've chosen 3 that we want to look at a bit closer.
Lots of very tidy pictures.
And, it's interesting because tidy could have been a picture of things that are tidy. There was a few puns in there. But I was also looking for tidy compositions, like the whole image composition being the thing that is tidy. So let's have a look at the 3 that I've chosen. The first one is by R. Fraser. Tidy treat.
A good Scotsman, R. Fraser. It's a Scottish cookie.
We looked it up. It's Australian, isn't it?
But it was founded by a Scottish immigrant, a Scotsman himself.
Yes.
Yeah.
R. Fraser did a great job by tidying this up. It's a constructed shot. It's a plate. It's one piece of one cookie on it. There's a knife and fork and
it's very
proper
simple.
cutlery. Very simple, but very tidy, straight composition. The lines are very parallel. The plate is well placed. Everything is tidy, and then there's this certain amount of humor in it, because who would eat an Arnotty Scotch cookie with a fork and a knife? I wouldn't, probably.
No.
So
very like crumbly. Yeah, it's cute.
It's a very fun picture.
Yeah.
The second one by Larry Elbower, titled Slices. Thank you for putting a proper title on your photo. This is a very tidy composition. I'm a fan of this. So what we're looking at is there's a building, like I don't even know, a high-rise kind of building, and it's shot in a way from below that 2 other buildings cover it up slightly in a V shape. So it is a very deliberate composition. The white building is nicely framed in that interesting shape, and it's very tidy. It's a very good composition. I'm a great fan of it. It's very graphical, like almost like an illustration. Almost like in a. I think this would be good in a comic strip or something.
Yeah.
So
architectural photos are tidy by their nature, usually, right?
Well, if the architecture is tidy, there's plenty of not so tidy architecture out there. Yeah. So but this is a very good one, and it takes some time to compose that well, because you need to find the right space and the right focal length to make sure that you cover what you want to cover. So this has been taken with a camera with a zoom lens. So Larry zoomed in just the right way to make sure it is well composed and it doesn't show things that are outside of the frame that don't make a lot of sense in the picture. So good job.
Very nice.
Very good job.
Yeah. Picture
and then
number
last
3.
but not least,
yes.
So R. Fraser, I didn't even see. So R. Fraser got 2 pictures
of them
today.
A very tidy fellow.
Well, you can submit a picture a week in our assignment.
There's no rule against winning twice. If
yes,
you call
absolutely
this
not.
Yeah.
And okay, so the picture that we're looking at here is, I don't even know what these are called. They are
lobster pods.
How would you call those?
They're lobster
pods.
pods.
Are they? Okay, lobster pods.
Or crayfish pots, POTS. They're for capturing shellfish.
I see. So they go on the ground. They go on the bottom of the sea.
Yeah.
Okay. So they come with ropes and other things that swim and
floats.
floats, and it's not there's not a lot of tidiness in there on first look, because everything is a big mishmash of ropes and floats and things and colors and shapes and so on. But then in itself, it's very tidy, because you have those 3 piles of them, those 3 stacks of them right next to each other, which are very tidy on the pallets, and everything is nicely grouped into these 3 things, and they are the pallets are very parallel. The composition itself is very parallel, so there's a nice little bit of space below the pallets towards the to the edge of the frame, and to the left and to the right, so it's nicely centered. So it is a tidy photo of an semi-tidy situation.
It's kind of cool in that respect. Yeah.
And it's almost like a Where's Waldo kind of photo, right? You have to you spend time exploring and searching and looking for things, and there's so much detail in it. So it has this broader tidiness, but in detail, it's very, very busy. So
nice job.
I like this. Good job.
Our Fraser with count them, 2 pictures in the
there you go.
in the prize there. That's nice job. He likes, as I look at his other photos, he's a tidy fellow. He likes to,
that's what photographers try to do, right? Photographers try to simplify, to make photos tidy. That's typically photos that you like to look at more. Yeah. They're tidied up a bit.
Very tidy fellow. Well, now we've done tidy. Maybe we should have another assignment.
Yes, we do. We're going to do opposites. The next assignment is messy.
Of course. That one I can definitely get behind. I got messes everywhere. Just look under my desk right now. You'll see a mess. Very nice. Messy. So here's how this works. As you can see, you don't have to do anything fancy. You could take a picture with anything you've got. It doesn't have to be a fancy camera. But when it illustrates in your mind beautifully, artistically, effectively, the concept, the idea, messy, you should upload it to Flickr, flickr.com. It's a free photo sharing site. That's what we use. There's a Tech Guy group on Flickr. You'll have to make sure you're a member of that group, and then you can submit it to the group. Before you submit it, please add a tag so we'll know it's a submission for this month's assignment, TG Messy. All one word, TGMESSY. Renee Silverman, our moderator, she runs the group over there. Thank you, Renee. We'll accept your submission. You can submit up to 1 a week. You've got about 4 weeks before Chris comes back and picks the best messes from the bunch. Thank you, Chris. Always fun to look at pictures on the radio. If you wanna know more about Chris, go to sensei.photo. He's a great coach. He really he's helped me become a fairly mediocre photographer, which is great since I started at terrible. Thank you, Chris. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. All the way up to mediocre.
You just saved at the last second.
All the way up from crappy.
A good save.
Yeah. So thank you, Chris. I'm just I'm looking at a new photo sharing app called Glass. It's invite only. Glass.photo.
I am on Glass. Are you on there as well?
I was going to ask. Yes, I am.
Let me
find you.
It's very pure. It's very pure, and I like this a lot.
Yeah. So are you just, I guess, you can search by people's names, which is the other thing I really like.
Yeah, just
there
Chris
you
Marquardt.
are. Chris Marquardt. Look at that.
And here's your follow.
I'm Leo Laporte, and I just followed you.
Your avatar.
Yeah.
I like your avatar.
For a while, I had a painting of John Wayne as my avatar. So, look, there you are up in the plane. Look at that with your iPhone. Look at that.
That's from yesterday.
Very nice. Isn't that amazing?
It was good.
You don't need a fancy camera anymore. Jeez.
I think the majority of the photos, the black and white photos that are on there, I think are mostly iPhone shots.
Isn't that amazing? Look at that.
So,
look at that.
Yeah, I think all of them are iPhone shots.
Yeah, just beautiful stuff.
No, a couple are not, but I'll leave that to you to find out which ones are not.
I love this one. That's really cool. Yeah.
That was straight out of the front window. There's a little compass. You don't really see it, but
yeah, it's really neat. And of course, some stuff from Svalbard. Is that the boat you guys go on? Wow.
No, that was just
that's the Hildegard
somewhere.
Another iPhone. This is a 10R picture. Look at that. So you tend to make your iPhone photos black and white, huh? Another iPhone.
Well, this is it's a black and white phase I'm in right now, especially the
I love
iPhone
black and white. In fact, I pretty much follow everybody I see who does black and white photos. I follow them. I just love.
They give pictures of a bit of a purity. So I think they're good fit for the glass. For the glass.
Isn't that interface nice? I just really.
It is so simple, and I'm initially I was a bit taken aback that you can't like photos, but then like is kind of the easy, cheap way out. So I'm kind of glad that you can't just like and move on.
It's
if you
more
really
like
a photo, then you better have to say something about it, right? It's better.
Yeah, I like
comment.
That. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, they need a better discovery of some kind because there's so many people on it now. It's hard to figure out who to follow, but.
They will.
I'm
pretty sure they will.
Lisa put her picture of Michael on there. He's our new graduate.
Is she on there too?
Yeah. Yeah, Lisa Laporte. So
there she is.
And if you look at the people I'm following quite a few podcasters and other people. There's her picture from the concert of rock and roll, Steve Stevens. Ooh, charcuterie. All right, I better run. Thank you, Chris. Have a great day.
See you next week.
See ya. Leo Laporte living the semi-charmed life here at 8888 Ask Leo. If you've got a question, you want to talk high-tech, got a comment, a suggestion. Bill's on the line from Stanton, Virginia. Hello, Bill.
Hello, Leo. How are you today?
I'm great. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I am on the East Coast in the Shenandoah Valley of Virginia. I have Gmail for my email service. My wife has the same.
Okay.
We're having trouble with receiving tons of advertisements that are addressed to my name, either Bill or William, but they're at AOL.com, not gmail.com. I don't have any accounts or history with AOL.com, but I suddenly started getting these about, 4 or 5 months ago, I guess, and they just continue to come in. I continue to delete them. I'm trying to completely block any emails that come into my name at AOL.com.
Yeah, in a way, that's good news that the morons who are doing this are not using your actual email address. I mean, they are, obviously, or it wouldn't be getting to you. But unless you, for some reason, are checking an AOL account, but you say you don't have one. So email was never designed to be secure. And so it's easy to spoof sending addresses. I don't know how you'd spoof the recipient's address. I'm trying to think about that. I think whatever it's showing is probably not the actual address on the envelope, in effect. It would have to have your Gmail address on there. But if you can figure out what field contains, William at AOL.com, you can easily create a Gmail filter that says, hey, if this mail is going to William at AOL.com, just don't put it in the inbox. Just get rid of it. And that's what filters are for. That's really their strength.
How do I go in and do that filter? And I don't have a laptop or a home computer. I only have my mobile.
Only on the phone. Okay. I'm not, off the top of my head, I don't have Gmail on my phone. Well, maybe I do. Let me look. I don't think I have Gmail on my phone. I don't usually, there should be, no, I don't. There should be an easy way, though. They call them filters. And, what you'd like to do is get one of those emails, find them, and then I think probably long press on it to create a filter from the email, because that'll get you pre-filled. The filter will be pre-filled with information from that email, and you're going to look in particular for whatever field contains the AOL address. I don't think it could be the to field. It's probably a CC field. But in any event, you want to look for it. And make sure that email comes to you with that field filled in with that address, You can then say goes into the archives. You could say don't go to my inbox. You can also say go to trash.
Right.
And that's probably what you want. Yeah. Now remember, the trash isn't immediately deleted. It'll sit there for 30 days. That's probably a good thing, just in case. You know, I always check through my spam folders to make sure I'm not missing anything important.
I mean, I can look at this right now. I just received one, and it says, "Congrats, you received a Lowe's reward."
Yeah. I'm going to guess, because in order for that to arrive in your Gmail box, the to field has to be your Gmail address. But there may be another address in the to field, or there may be another address in the CC field that is that AOL address. Whatever it is, you're going to filter on that.
Well, I looked at that one, and I looked at the one below it. This one has bill@AOL.com, CC bill@AOL.com, and it's from Congrats.
Yeah, you can ignore the from field, obviously. Spammers never use a real from field, and email allows you to spoof that. That's easy to do. But email will not get to you unless in a to field there is your address somewhere. Yeah. So, and maybe this is, spammers are smart. They're always trying to get around. Gmail has very good anti-spam filters. They're always trying to get around it. Maybe they figured out, if we use William@AOL.com as the to field or something. But you can also, I wish I could remember how you do it on the mobile. On the desktop, it's right-click on it. So I suspect on mobile it's a long press to get the pop-up menu, and you'll see a variety of different things. There's even a block thing. I'd just be nervous because, there is your address somewhere in there. There has to be. So what you really want to do is filter on that bill@AOL.com address. By the way, there is a bill, I'm sure a bill@AOL.com. There was a guy named Jim who had Jim@AOL.com, never could use it because, guess why? Jammed with spam. Spammers, when they're sending out spam, what they'll do is they'll send out, in fact, I bet you what you're on is, in fact, come to think of it, this is what they did. It's addressed to bill@AOL.com, and then there's a blind CC field, you can't see it, that has thousands, maybe millions of addresses, including yours. And so all of those people in the blind CC are getting this email, but it looks like it's sent to bill@AOL.com. You've seen that before when you're on a mailing list. It'll look like it's being sent to somebody, but you're on the blind CC invisible list. Yeah. I bet you that's what they're doing.
Yeah, they must be. And I did go, I went on the website, on the web, and asked the question of Google. It did say go to general settings, but then it said go to some other type of settings, which is not on the mobile. I guess.
I think on the mobile, I apologize. I'll install Gmail. I don't use Gmail anymore. I do have a Gmail account. In fact, our company uses Gmail, so I need to have a Gmail account. But it's going to be long press, or maybe it's in the 3-dot setting. Somewhere there's going to be a way to add that email to your block list. And really, you should basically filter against any email that's sent to William@AOL.com. That's never you.
No, that's right.
Yeah, so you could just move that to the trash forthwith.
I think what I'm going to try to do is hook this up to a PC, and then open my account up on that PC and see if
if you could find somebody with a computer and just say, hey, can I use it for 5 minutes, and log into your Google account on that computer. That's the easy, at least for me, that's the easiest way to create these filters.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome. I'm glad you called. That's a really interesting new strategy from spammers. It's clever. They're if not clever. And, of course, their whole goal is to get around Google's very effective spam filtering. I'm looking at my spam box on Gmail, and, man, these are crazy. I wouldn't recommend it if you're easily offended. But some of these, your boyfriend doesn't know you're looking. I think I like you very much. You're the next millionaire, Laporte. Wow. I'm just looking at the subject lines. Wow, how soulful your eyes are. They're looking directly into the soul. And then there's some I can't read on the radio. Oh, we're happy to announce your window for claiming a potential settlement has been expanded. A lot of emojis in these now. Second attempt for Laporte. Your money is waiting. If you're in the mood for a laugh, just browse through your Gmail spam box. I just got one that says former Nazi doctor. I won't finish the subject, but that's a way to start an email, isn't it? 8888 ask Leo. Gmail has some of the best email filtering, primarily because it's doing something called collaborative email filtering. And this really turns out to be the best way to do it, is to have other people using Gmail, the hundreds of millions of people who use Gmail. If they mark it as spam, if enough people, say 10, mark it as spam, that's pretty sure that it's spam. Humans are better, after all, at detecting spam than computers are. Well, hey, how are you today? Leo Laporte here, the tech guy. Time to talk computers, the internet, home theater, digital photography, smartphones, smartwatches, all that jazz. We talk about tech here every day, every weekend. 8888 Ask Leo, the phone number, 888-827-5536, toll free from anywhere in the U.S. or Canada. See the article in the Wall Street Journal. The longer COVID-19 keeps people home, the harder it may be to get them back to the office. CEOs are now worried that people are just going to get accustomed to working from home, and we're never going to get them. That should tell you something about how bad it is working in an office. You know, it's one of the theories for why there's so many unfilled job openings. Your local restaurant and Burger King and so forth, they got help wanted ads everywhere, is that people realize this is a terrible job for very poor wages, and I don't need to go back to it. I'm going to find something better. Wow. I have to say, one of the things that has been most fascinating to me, and it's tech adjacent, I don't know if it's exactly tech, but it's tech adjacent, is how the world has changed thanks to COVID-19, thanks to this long pandemic, which seems to be continuing, and how it will change our habits. And certainly work is going to change. A lot of things are going to change, you know. We were talking earlier about Disney Plus doing so well during the pandemic. And movie stars unhappy, Scarlett Johansson suing Disney, saying you weren't supposed to show this on streaming yet. You were supposed to put it in the theaters because I'm going to get a percentage of the theater box office, but I don't get a percentage of the streaming box office, and I want my money. $30 to watch Black Widow on Disney Plus, but apparently it's grossed $125 million already in the first month. On Disney Plus, people are buying it. And there's the residual benefit, which, of course, ScarJo doesn't see any benefit from, which is that people will sign up for Disney Plus, and many of those will stay on Disney Plus. Another big change. 8888 Ask Leo. That's the phone number. I'd like to talk high tech with you. It could be answering your printer problems, sure, but it could also be, you know, how this world is changing thanks to technology and the pandemic. Richard on the line from Torrance, California. Hi, Richard.
Hi, Leo.
Welcome.
It's great to talk with you again. My wife is an iPad addict, and for some reason, she has had a major problem with iPad, and we've gone to Apple, we've gone to everywhere to figure it out. And I just talked with her, and here's what happens.
Okay.
It seems to be a buffering issue. Is there any way she's entering, whether it's working on a crossword, working on this or that, on or offline, and all of a sudden it will freeze up, and she's typing in a group of characters, and it won't take in all the characters. It's stuck as though it's doing something else in the background.
Let me ask you a couple of questions before we move on. Is she using an external keyboard or a keyboard case, or is she typing it on the screen?
She's typing it on the screen.
Interesting. I have had this happen. The reason I ask, with the Magic Keyboard case that Apple offers, occasionally, it uses a smart connector on the back of the iPad Pro, and occasionally it seems to forget that the keyboard's there and just sit there while I'm typing. But that's not the problem if she's using the iPad screen directly. So she'll type and it just is unresponsive.
It's unresponsive, and we sent it in to get it repaired. We've gone to the Genius Bar, and nobody can find anything wrong with it. It's like when you take your pet to the vet, and it's healthy as can be.
Yeah.
But then she starts using it, an hour or two into it. I want to take a break.
It's what we call in the biz an intermittent problem. Very hard for the tech to diagnose because he's not seeing it happen. And you said something interesting. It doesn't happen right away. It happens after she uses it for a while.
Yeah, it happens, and it's intermittent. Like I say, it could be an hour, and all of a sudden, I'm taking a break. I don't want to do this anymore. It's not consistent.
Let me ask you, and I'm sure that they've already had you do this, but just in case, have you reset the iPad, gone back to the, as if it were brand new, wipe it and start over?
Oh, sure. We've done. Are you kidding? Yes.
You've done that many times, huh? All right.
Yeah, all the time. And gone ahead and we said, well, maybe it's a software glitch. Maybe it's this and that. But I just talked with her and I go, you know what? It's probably a buffering problem. Something within that's a buffering thing. And that's why I thought I'd give you a call and say, is there any way to adjust? But she's got 250 gigabytes and she's only using about half of that. Is there any way to give the iPad more buffering ability?
Yeah, that's it's an interesting diagnosis. I don't think that's what's happening. It's ignoring the keyboard. Eventually, how does it come back? Does it ever come back?
Oh yeah, it comes back. Yeah, you can. If she turn it off.
Yeah, that's the best way to get it to come back is turn it all the way off. Press and hold the on-off switch and the volume up button until you get the slide to power off. Power it off. Then power it back on again. In effect, you're rebooting it. Because the iPad does not normally reboot. And I think rebooting it. And at that point, does it work?
At that point, yeah. Normally it will work after you reboot it. But it's not a hardware problem. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just something that's inherent with it.
They say it's not a hardware problem, but they're not able to see it happening. So there's a few things that could be going on. It's the fact that it happens after a period of time is a clue. It could be heat. I don't think it is. The iPad doesn't usually suffer from that. You said it's 5 years old, the iPad?
iPad 2 Air, whenever that was released, she got.
It could also be there is some software on it that has what we call a memory leak. What that means is it allocates memory but doesn't release it. And after a period of time, it uses up so much memory that the computer stalls. And in both cases, overheating or a memory leak, the turning it off and turning it on again, rebooting the machine, not merely turning off the screen, but really shutting the computer down and would fix it. It would clear the memory. And then over time and use, it would come back again. So the couple of things I would suggest, when you do the wipe, don't restore initially. Just wipe it and have it come from the factory. And try not to install any apps, but use it, maybe just write in the notepad, something that it came with, and see if you can get it to happen again. If from a clean boot and a clean install with nothing additional, no additional apps, it's continuing to happen, then it is a flaw either in the iPad hardware or the operating system, and there's nothing you can do. You got to take it to Apple and say, look, it's still happening. I want a new one or whatever. It's well out of warranty, so they're probably just going to say you're out of luck. If it doesn't happen, though, after you've done a complete wipe, then very judiciously reinstall apps. And note, I wouldn't install an app more than an app a day, believe it or not. Now, she's not going to like this. But maybe the crossword puzzles, that's the number one app she uses. That'd be the first one to put back and see if the problem recurs. If it doesn't, it may be there is a keyboard function or something that's got a memory leak that you haven't reinstalled. Is she using just the stock keyboards? Has she installed any third-party keyboards, for instance?
No, there are no third-party keyboards on this whatsoever.
Okay.
And making her go cold turkey, even on most of her programs, it's going to be hard. But I'll see what I can do.
And it may not be worth it, but that's the way to diagnose it. The good news is, the newer iPad Air is very good. It's fairly inexpensive. It may be telling you that it's time to replace it, but it'd be worth a try if you could get her to maybe get her a new one and then do this. But if you could get her to refresh the thing, start over from scratch with nothing on it and see if it happens. If it does continue to happen, then there's nothing you can do because it's using everything stock from Apple. A refreshed operating system, only the Apple apps, and it's still happening. That means there is something fundamentally wrong with the iPad. So my only hope here is that maybe there's some app, maybe some, app that's not so well written. I know Apple's, vets all these apps, but it's hard to find these. But something that's using up memory or doing something with the operating system or screwing around with the keyboard is creating a problem. Don't install any stickers. Don't do anything that's not stock Apple and see if the problem goes away. If it does, then it's not Apple's fault at that point. It's something else you're installing. And then that's going to be the tricky thing is tracking that one down. These are, you could see how hard this is for the Apple guy. All he can do, the genius, so-called, the semi-genius, at best, all he can do or she can do is run a diagnostic program. I'm sure they did that, which, looks at everything and says, everything there, is it working all right? The RAM, but that's not going to do it. You really need to get it to fail in front of them. And even then, they don't have the tools to figure this out. They don't. It's very limited. This is a sealed box. So it's going to be kind of on you if you want to figure out what's going on. And I really do think that the only thing you can do is check these other apps and see if they're causing a problem. I think we had a wake up little Laura. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Wake up. Wake up. 8888. Ask Leo. That's the phone number. Gary on the line from my favorite town in upper New York State, Cheektowaga. Hello, Gary.
Hey, Leo. I was on a 40-mile bike ride yesterday around Lake Chautauqua. I went right by the Chautauqua Institute. That's what reminded me to call you.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah. So I bought a new Dell desktop, Optiplex, and I bought a couple of new monitors because I need 3 monitors, and these 2 were on sale. They're Philips Quad HD. They've got dual link DVI, HDMI, and DisplayPort. And Dell sold me a card with all 3 on it. And I'm wondering which of those 3 would be the best to use on the main monitor. It's mostly text work. It's, Acrobat, Word, Excel.
I don't think it would matter.
Doesn't matter, you don't think?
No. Does the machine? It must have a discrete GPU, a video card in it.
I told them I needed 3, and they sold me this gaming video card. But it has 3 on it. So.
Yeah, that means you can connect 3 monitors. You don't need 3 cards.
It connects.
If the card has enough RAM in it and enough horsepower in it, it can drive more than 1 monitor, obviously. And if they put that many ports on it, it probably has 3. I don't think it would matter. I'll be honest with you. If it has a display port, you might prefer that over...
the monitors and the card have the display port.
Yeah. So for a 4K monitor... Well, I think nowadays even monitor...
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, so that's probably 4K. So that's Quad HD is the same thing as UHD. So I think it doesn't really matter. Nowadays, HDMI can drive Quad HD. In the old days, you needed to use display port that had the capability of linking. It was a complicated process to get 4K out. But I think nowadays, modern video cards just drive 4K, no problem, out of the HDMI port. So I would say I don't think it matters. I generally prefer. Well, now that's the other thing. Does a monitor? Do you care about audio? Does a monitor have a speaker?
Yeah, they do have speakers, but I have speakers.
Okay, so if you didn't care about getting monitor audio out of the monitor, then it wouldn't matter. DisplayPort does not transport audio, so that HDMI does, though. So I think it does. I don't think one's better than the other. I think they're all the same.
What's the dual link DVI?
So this goes back to the days when you couldn't drive 4K over HDMI. They had this kind of funky thing called dual link. And that's what that DisplayPort uses to drive a 4K monitor, dual link DVI. DVI was the early form of digital interface, and that's the DisplayPort. Is it better than HDMI? I think nowadays, no. It was a solution that you had to use in the old days. In fact, I had monitors you had to hook up 2 different HDMI cables to. One would do half the screen, the other would do the other half. But all of that's gone by the wayside now that a modern video card can easily drive 4K. You could just use a standard HDMI cable. The dual link goes back to an earlier day, in other words.
And then one last question for you. I'm sitting here watching my terabyte of data transfer over. It'll probably take all night, but I looked at Laplink, and I think even Dell has some.
Yeah, they're still around. It's kind of hard to believe. Laplink, wow.
Isn't it good?
No, you don't. No, you don't need that. Laplink is kind of hanging on to the old. Remember Laplink in the old days? It would come with a printer cable in the box. It was a way for doing, again, like dual link. These were arguably kind of jerry-rigged solutions to problems that couldn't be easily solved, but these problems are easily solved nowadays. It's easy to connect 2 computers together and copy the data at high speed. You don't need anything special to do that.
All right, yeah, I was thinking of all the settings and stuff. So I guess
I'll be honest, the real thing is, if you're using Windows file copy, the copy routine built into Explorer is terrible because it doesn't do checking, doesn't verify. Plus, if it fails badly. And it's hard to pick up where you left off. But that's why, for years, Microsoft has bundled a command line utility for copying. It's what I would use if you're going to copy a whole terabyte. It's called RoboCopy. Oh. And Robo not for robot, but for robust. And so they put RoboCopy in the command line because their built-in copy routines are so terrible. So if you Google Microsoft, you can find documentation for the RoboCopy command. You're going to do it, you're going to open a command shell, and you're going to type RoboCopy and the source and then the destination. But what's nice about RoboCopy is it verifies, it can resume if it fails. The regular copy routine's terrible. It's also slow. RoboCopy should be faster.
Oh, thanks. Oh, one last I want to mention to you. At the end of this ride, there was a party, and we were all gathered around it.
I can't believe you guys had enough energy to party after 40 miles.
I've been doing it this is my 7th year.
You're in good shape. That's awesome.
Not really, but it's work. But I ride a recumbent trike. So
that's fun. Yeah, I do too. I love those, yeah.
But he said to me, you'll never have to worry about getting hit with all the flags and lights on your recumbent unless someone is Teslaing.
And then they won't see you at all. They'll drive right over you. Yeah, sad to say. Yeah, I have those big flags to go at eye level when I ride my recumbent because we're so low to the ground. Leo Laporte, the tech guy.
All right, thank you, Leo.
Yeah, it's a pleasure talking to you. Which recumbent do you ride?
This year I've got the Green Speed Magnum.
I'll have to look into these.
They were Australia. They're out of Australia, but the owner died a couple of years ago, and the TerraTrike bought them out.
Yeah, I have a TerraTrike. Oh, it looks a lot like my TerraTrike, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. TerraTrike bought them out, so they're all under one umbrella now.
Nice. I love my TerraTrike. You're giving me the urge to ride it. See, 40 miles on a TerraTrike wouldn't be quite so bad, I think.
No, it is. Well, let me explain to you, too. Now, this was the first year. I did this 6 years in a row. This is the first year I did it cheating. I used a ride kick trailer. They're absolutely wonderful. They hook onto your bike or your trike just like any other trailer does, like a kid's trailer.
Yeah.
Got a little motor in the back, 30-amp-hour lithium battery.
So it turns it into an e-bike.
Turns it into an e-bike. And, I use it on the uphills this year, and what usually takes me 6.5 hours took me 4 hours.
I love my e-bike. One of the reasons I don't ride my TerraTrike as much is because I got an e-bike.
Look into the Ride Kick.
Ride Kick.
Colorado. It's a husband and wife team out there.
I'll tell you the other reason I don't is because I'm terrified I'm going to get run over, not just by a Tesla, but by anything. Because they're a little wider. They're not good for road. But I presume that around the lake, Chautauqua, there's a path of some kind.
Well, there's a bike lane.
And I guess if you're with a bunch of other bicyclists, you're probably a lot safer. Oh, look at this thing. It's so cute. Yeah, and it just attaches to the hub, and it drives you.
Yeah, and it attaches like any other trailer. So I have 3 trikes and a recumbent bike, and I switch it on and off with no issue. I've put the attachments on each one. It's just
I'm going to get one.
Grandkids in their trail.
I'm going to get me one. That's pretty cool.
Really?
I had no idea I could retrofit that TerraTrike. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's got a controller in it, so it won't. If you're going more than 20, it won't give you any more power because of the laws in most states.
Same thing with my e-bike. Yeah, because they don't want you to be. Yeah.
You can go more than 20, but it won't power you anymore.
Right. You have to go downhill with the wind at your back. Oh, look at this. The green speed folds up. That's nice.
Yep. Yeah, that's the reason I bought the green speed.
That's nice.
That's, But I call it my hammock on wheels. I sit in the thing.
It is. It's like a hammock. It's comfortable. That's the biggest problem with long rides for me is my butt hurts. So this, that's why I got the TerraTrike. I really like it. Plus, I feel like Recumbent, you've got more power in your legs going out than you do down, I feel like.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I can do it.
Yeah, TerraTrike's that's a good solid trike, too.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I got, what, now, I was going to give it away, and Lisa said, don't give it away. We love that. So I'm going to fix it up.
I have a Varia Garmin radar that lets me know on my phone when, there's cars approaching.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking what they should do is put a unit in cars.
Yes.
That warns people. It picks up their radar and says, "Hey, there's a bike in front of you."
Yep.
Wakes them up.
I got all these flags. Nobody's ever hit me or come close, but somebody did throw a bottle at me once, and I think it's because they think it looks like the circus is in town. Because I got a big orange flag, a peace flag, all these flags on my TerraTrike because you're so low.
Well, I hate to tell you this, I shouldn't, but depending on where I'm riding, my flags change. So, for instance, in Chautauqua County, there's a lot of Trump signs.
Get yourself
American flag up.
A little American smart man.
I'm riding through the city of Buffalo, maybe I put the peace flag
Put the peace flag on it, yep. I got a nice tie-dyed peace flag. I'll save that for San Francisco. Hey, a pleasure talking to you. It's great to hear from you, Gary.
Thank you, Leo.
Have a great ride. Take care. Ladies and gentlemen, time to head out into space on our recumbent bicycles. Mr. Rod Pyle is here. He's our spaceman, editor-in-chief of the Ad Astra magazine, the official magazine of the National Space Society at space.nss.org. He's also a prolific space author. I was just looking at the cover of Amazing Stories, and I didn't see at the top of it there, Rod Pyle. It says, True Tales of Nazis in Orbit.
Yeah.
That's link bait, isn't it? Soldiers on the moon, orphaned Martian robots, and other fascinating accounts from the annals of spaceflight.
So authors, as you know, because you've been one, we always come up with our title, right?
Yeah.
And then we submit some subtitle ideas to the publisher.
Yes.
And then they do what they want.
Yes.
And once that thing had been on the rack for a couple of weeks, I got a note back from the publisher saying, from now on, all your books have to have space Nazis in the title.
It's selling like
that's probably not a bad idea.
Crazy. It was chapter 1 after all.
Well, yeah.
But it's you know, it's of course, Werner von Braun and the Germans who came over. Our Germans are better than your Germans.
Yeah.
Who?
Jugendsanger was the that chapter's mainly about, if I recall correctly, the Silverbird suborbital skip bomber that the Nazis were going to try and build.
That's right.
And
there's Jugend.
The math worked and everything, had it gone perfectly, which it generally doesn't with spaceflight, could have potentially, Germany could have had a suborbital skip bomber that would have reached, there you've got a picture of it, would have reached from somewhere in the western edge of Europe to drop bombs on Manhattan.
Terrifying.
And it's interesting because people assume, well, they would have had to have a nuclear bomb to make that work, but from the altitudes they were talking about, a large bomb would have so much kinetic energy that it could have wiped out a big chunk of downtown
Even without
Manhattan.
exploding, it'd just be like dropping an asteroid on
it's like dropping those big tungsten rods from orbit or something. So, that was a fun chapter to do. Kind of spooky. That and the German heat ray from orbit. That was the other one that I really enjoyed.
Amazing Stories of the Space Age, Rod Pyle, available better bookstores everywhere from Prometheus Books. There's your plug.
And even less better ones. Yeah.
even some of the rattier downtown bookstores have it.
Yeah, used bookstores, you name it.
So what's up in space this week?
Well, we've had some interesting times on Mars here. I'll start with the Chinese rover, Zhuang. It's doing well. They've extended their mission past their first 90 days.
That's
great.
On May 22nd. I'm actually glad to hear that.
So it's I've been chatting with some folks at JPL about it, and they're impressed. They said it's hard to get something that size off of a lander, especially doing it the first time. And it's not a terribly ambitious mission, but for a first, it's very ambitious. So they've taken a lot of photographs. They rolled over and found their parachute and the back shell that came off of the lander, and have done some radar soundings and a bunch of photo surveys. But now it's moving on to its extended mission. So this could be another opportunity or spirit as it moves along. Good. And then Perseverance, as you probably know, had its first drilling attempt on.
They looking for oil?
Yeah. Well, they just want to see what the rocks are made out of and seal up those samples so we can bring them home in, we hope, a few years. And so everything was looking good, and the drill went in, and all the indications were that the pressure on the arm was right, because it turns and hammers at the same time, right? Because it's trying to break up this rock to get it into the drill bit. And it's a core sampler, so it's about the size of a small cigar. And they brought it up, and they stuck the feeler indicator down the tube, and it was empty. They went, huh? So after a little head scratching, they figured out that the rock was so powdery that it just, as soon as they got done drilling and lifted the core drill up, it fell out. So they're going to go try another place. But, the more they do this, so if you remember with the InSight lander, they were going to hammer that mole probe down into the crust. They hoped to go down 15, 16, 18, 20 feet. And this was to measure heat coming out of Mars, because that's how you figure out how heat moves through the inner planet to the outer planet. And they banged on it. The thing had tested perfectly on Earth. So this is a long tube that's supposed to hammer down into the crust, and it just got down about, I think it was 5 or 6 feet, and then stopped. So they're finding out more and more that Martian dirt is just weird. It's stickier. It's got issues with static electricity. It's got weird soil chemistry, and now it turns out parts of it are even more like talcum powder than talcum powder. So that didn't work, but they're going to try again.
This is also bad news for inhabiting Mars, right? Because it turns out this regolith is so fine of a powder it would be poisonous to us.
Well, that both on Mars and the moon, the dust has different properties, but because on the moon there's no weathering, so it's very sharp, so that's bad for your lungs. On Mars, it's very, very fine, almost the size of smoke particles, and also, as we discussed, toxic because it's got perchlorates in it. So the soil offer, even the dirt in space hates us. So it's not bad enough the vacuum doesn't like us, and there's radiation, and there's all this other stuff, but now it's just coming down to dirt. So, if you think about being kids when we used to go out and, play in mud holes and make mud pies, and of course getting filthy was part of being a kid, you're not going to be doing that on other planets.
You're probably not even going to be planting potatoes, to be honest.
No, definitely won't be doing that.
Yep.
And the last thing on the Mars front is in early to mid-October, everything's got to shut down to a crawl for about 10 days because we reached Mars solar conjunction, which is when Mars and Earth are on opposite sides of the sun. So it's very hard to communicate. So the probes, depending on which program you're talking about, can still do some basic chores, but they basically kind of go into a very low performance mode.
It's not worth risking them doing stuff on their own if we can't monitor it.
Yeah, and towards the beginning and the end of that period, you can get some signals through, but you don't want to be big bandwidth.
They're always doing stuff on their own. I mean, it's so far away we can't control them robotically, but at least we can see what happened, 15 minutes later.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's fun. I love it that we're just talking about, oh, yeah, we're on Mars. Chinese are on Mars. We're all just hanging out on Mars.
Well, and I was thinking about this the other day. You and I are probably going to live we're definitely going to live, knock wood, to see the return to the moon, but we're probably going to live to see people step on Mars. And for so many decades, that was like an impossibility in my mind.
It was the stuff of science fiction.
Yeah, and now I'm thinking, when that happens, what's that emotion going to be like? Is it going to be, oh my God, I can't believe we finally made it? Or is it going to be more like, well, of course Elon got there. I just wonder.
I wonder if Elon's going to send his new robots up there. They can sure dance. I don't know.
In spandex, yeah. So I guess the idea there is that they're human shaped, so they'll be able to use human
and of course
tools.
That's what Boston Dynamics has been doing for more than a decade. Now they've got robots that can dance. They can even do parkour. Elon says he's going to have robots that can do all sorts of stuff, and he's going to have them in a year. Well, we'll see.
Well, and I have to hand it to him. I mean, it's kind of a cool-looking thing, but he didn't go down that road that so many of the Japanese robot companies go down, which is all robots are 25 and female, So I tip of the hat to Elon for that. Speaking of Elon.
Yes?
Blue Origin has put their foot down the gas pedal again.
Jeff Bezos' space company, yes.
Yes, filed in the Federal Court of Claims, trying to get their piece of the lunar landing program because they're not happy. That
Elon won this battle without a bid.
Well, no, he bid. It was just a much lower bid than Blue Origin.
Oh, that's right. That's right. There was a bid.
Half.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he outbid them.
He outbid them, and NASA came back months ago and said, look, we've only got enough money for one of you. Sorry, that's not how it's supposed to work, but that's all we can do.
Yeah.
And so they gave $2.9 billion is almost nothing. But Bezos is going to fight it to the ground.
See, this is a shame because let's all do it together. We don't need to fight over this. Leo Laporte.
Well, don't hang it up for months.
Yeah, exactly. The tech guy. Same thing's happening with Amazon and Microsoft over these military contracts. Amazon just got a $10 billion military contract with the National Security Agency, and Microsoft's suing, saying, no fair. Didn't it used to be that national security preempted your own petty little economic interest?
Yeah, and it's just, less so on the military side, but this isn't a good look for these guys. This isn't the kind of competition that we admire.
It's the same thing as, I'm going to launch my rocket before you launch your rocket.
Well, but at least that is, I would consider, at least in this context, that to be a healthier form of competition. Just throwing stuff to the courts to drag it out for months and months, and this slows down anything that NASA and SpaceX are doing because they've got to park it until November.
So that's the real concern is
another legal challenge.
In fact, this is the Gizmodo headline. Jeff Bezos instigates potentially crushing delay of the NASA lunar lander. That is not a good look.
Yeah. What's the date? Is that in the last few days?
This one is, Friday.
I guess you could call it crushing. It's probably 6 weeks to a couple of months, unless, if the thing moves forward, then it could be crushing. But it's just so unnecessary. And once again, we've talked about this before. When you look at what SpaceX has done, they've flown to the space station over 20 times if you include the cargo flights.
Yes, they deserve
and all
to
the
win
testing
this.
And all that stuff.
Yes.
And it's like, I love Blue Origin, but come on, guys. You've flown suborbital with people once, and your big rocket engines are behind schedule, and your rocket's late. Let's see something here.
This is straight out of the Silicon Valley evil genius playbook, which is if you can't win in the marketplace, beat them in the courts. And it's terrible. I hate it. I really do.
All that said, though, I do agree there should be competition, and I can understand. At least initially, I can understand the impetus behind, okay, look, we want to lodge a complaint here because we were told this is going to be multiple bids and multiple awards, and now it's just one. So you can see that there was some motivation there, but I think it's time to back out and just let it go on to the second round.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, sir. Have a wonderful week. We will connect again next week. I hope your cold improves.
I'm sure it will. Thanks.
All right. Have a good one.
Take care.
It's over already? Man, it goes fast. Last segment of the show for the week. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Thanks go out, of course, to Professor Laura, our musical director. She, every time she plays a song, I think, is this person just passed away? But in fact, she played Wake Up Little Susie, and I did not know at the time that Don Everly of the Everly Brothers passed this week. He was in his 80s, I think. What a great sound those guys had. Just beautiful. So I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad tidings. Age of 84, Don Everly passed away this week. The last surviving member of the Everly Brothers. Thank you, Lady Laura, for bringing us all down. Thanks to Kim Schaffer, our phone angel, for bringing everybody up, answering your calls, getting you on the air, and thanks, of course, to you for calling and listening. We couldn't do this without you. So on behalf of Laura and Kim and myself, thank you so much for listening to the show. Margaret on the line from Newport News, Virginia. Hello, Margaret.
Hello, can you hear me?
I hear you great.
Okay, had a lot of distortion earlier. What happened was I bought a program from the home store, computer store, a Microsoft program. When I put it on my husband's computer, the Microsoft company automatically changed the activation number, and the program that I put on did not activate. But the program they put on my account, which is the same program that I bought, activated. Oh. And there was no way that I can contact you. There's not a contact. Every time you go to the features that they give you for contact, it's never any success. So how would I delete their product and keep the one that I purchased? Because the one that they put on my account, you will have to pay monthly fees. And the one that I bought was just a one-time thing.
How much did you pay for the one-time activation?
I think it was the one that I got from the store.
Yeah.
I think it was old. I think it was like $100.
Hundreds of dollars, right? Hundreds of dollars.
It wasn't hundreds of dollars. No, 30.
No, and you didn't get the so-called perpetual license of Office is hundreds of dollars. You got a subscription.
Okay.
And the subscription is, whether the activation changed or not, the subscription is a monthly fee. Usually it's around $80. You might have bought a year for $30. That might be reasonable. I think I pay $60 for a year of Microsoft Office. Was it all of the Office?
No, it was just that one. I think it was Home Edition 19 or something like that.
Yeah. So that's Office. Yeah, Microsoft Office Home Edition that's about right. You might have gotten a little discount, in fact. So they shouldn't be charging you monthly until next year, in other words. But they will eventually charge you monthly. That's not a perpetual license. You just bought a year's worth of subscription. So that's the question, is how that happened. When you got the thing from the store, it came with a card with a number on it, right? The activation number.
Yes.
Yeah, and you entered that in, and it accepted it.
Mm-hmm.
And did it add it to your Microsoft account?
Yes, but it didn't have the same activation number.
Well, there might be a serial number that's different than the activation number. That's okay. But what you want to do is check and see on that card. Did you throw the card out already?
No.
Okay. Check and see what's on that card. Is it a year of Microsoft 365 or what? The family edition is $100 a year. The personal edition, which is probably what you got, is $70 a year. Maybe you got a discount from the store. One of the things stores do, though, I'd be very careful with, those cards used to come with new PCs. I have a stack of them in the drawer. I don't use them because I already pay for it. And sometimes stores, if they're a little bit shady, will separate those cards from the actual PC and sell them separately because they can make a little extra money. Which I think, given that you paid about $30 for it, sounds like what might have happened. That they might have, and maybe they even misrepresent what you got there. Like, look, Office, Microsoft Office, just $30. Well, it's much more than $30 for the perpetual version, the licensed version, and it's at least $70 for the year subscription. So I'm not going to say they're shady, but you might bring it back to the store and say, hey, looky here. Look on the card carefully. Make sure it doesn't say only to be sold, for instance, with a new computer, that kind of thing. Log onto your Microsoft account. Or if I don't know if it's your husband's or your account that you attached it to, but log on to whichever account you attached it to and take a look at what you got and what you think you got. And I'm going to guess that the people you need to take this up with is the store that you bought it at, and that perhaps they misrepresented what they were actually selling you. That's what it sounds like to me. It's been going on for some time where they kind of separate out the stuff that comes with the computer and sell it separately, making a little extra money. The card should give you a clear idea of what it is that you got. My guess is you got a trial subscription to Office that came with a new PC for free, I might add, and that the store took it out of the box and sold it to you for $30, pure profit for them, a loss for the person who bought the computer and didn't get that card, and a loss for you because you didn't get what you paid for. You got pretty much nothing. The volume price for Office Perpetual is $160. It's more than that if you buy one off the shelf. So I don't think you got what you think you got. That's what I think the problem is. I should mention, there are ways to use an Office program for free. The chat room is reminding me that there are open source versions of Office. I'm a big fan of LibreOffice, Libre. In fact, I'm using LibreOffice Writer right now. There's their Microsoft Word clone. Works on Windows, it works on Mac, it works on Linux. It's excellent. It can read and write Microsoft Office files, and it's free. LibreOffice. How do you spell Office? They've got a spell checker in there too, thank goodness. LibreOffice.org. We'll put a link at the show notes. And of course, if you have Google Drive, they're free for, I think, what do you get? 5 gigabytes, 10 gigabytes free? And they have, I think, a very competent set of Office-like tools that do spreadsheets, PowerPoint-like slide presenters, and of course, word processing. That's free. Zoho Office has a very nice Microsoft Office that's kind of free. And even Microsoft, of all people, offers a web-based Microsoft Office that looks exactly like and works very much like regular Microsoft Office. And it's free at office.com. So there's, I think, a lot of... I don't think you should pay for, frankly, Office Suite anymore. I think there's too many good ways to do it for free. We are out of time. 8888 Ask Leo. Call me next week. I will be glad to answer your questions all week long. TechGuyLabs.com has all the information from this show, including audio and video of past shows. I'm Leo Laporte. I'm your tech guy. I'll be here next week. I hope you will be too. And meanwhile, have a great Geek Week. Bye-bye. Well, that's it for the Tech Guy Show for today. Thank you so much for being here. And don't forget, TWiT, T-W-I-T. It stands for This Week in Tech, and you'll find it at twit.tv, including the podcasts for this show. We talk about Windows on Windows Weekly, Macintosh on MacBreak Weekly, iPads, iPhones, Apple Watches on iOS Today, security on Security Now. I mean, I can go on and on and on. And, of course, the big show every Sunday afternoon, This Week in Tech. You'll find it all at twit.tv. And I'll be back next week with another great Tech Guys show. Thanks for joining me. We'll see you next time.